The very first day when he pounds, 100, 200 nails, he's going to be sore the next day. And then his body adapts to it, and he's no longer sore, and it's very easy for him. So just like construction workers can then do more work, we need to change the training stimulus. So for people, generally, we change the routine, we increase the intensity. We can really, for beginners that are overweight, we can do an incredible workout with them lying on the ground only with bodyweight exercises, especially if they're untrained and quite overweight. So, most people don't have to go to machines or fancy, crazy exercises. We can get them stronger and fitter just lying on the ground. So that's where I start most people, but it's just, how can I get them over to the basic movement patterns safely and properly, and we'll probably put a little more emphasis on the back of the body, upper back and the glutes and hamstrings than they're probably used to.
We call those the go muscles, right? The go muscles on the back side and the show muscles on the front side.
Yeah, exactly.
So Craig, we got some advanced people in this community, and you've had a theme going on as we talked about this, and that theme was adaptation. And I'm so glad you brought that up, because people need to realize that everything they do, simply what their body does is try to adapt to that. Can you break that down in a way that people will understand, to get them more focused on adaptation and understanding what they need to do to really change their bodies and their lives?
Sure. Well, let's go back to the the interval training aspect of it, and the cardio versus interval training. So what you're doing when you're trying to increase your fitness is you can make adaptations in two things: your heart and lungs, which are the central factor in fitness, and then in your muscles, which are known as the peripheral factors in fitness. And it's probably that the peripheral factors within the muscles, the ability to use the oxygen that's delivered, the ability to take it up, the ability to use it within the muscle cells to create energy using the enzyme system, is what is really important in your fitness. And you can go and put a long, slow stimulus on the muscle, and it will cause the enzyme system to upregulate and do more and produce more energy. Or you can go and do hard, intense exercise for a short amount of time, which pretty much gives the same stimulus as the long workout to that enzyme system. And so when you see these comparisons of interval training versus cardio training, and my friends at my former university, McMaster University, have done a lot of these interval training versus cardio training studies, and they find that the fitness increases are the same between the two groups, those that do intervals or those that do long cardio, but the interval people are done in 6 minutes of exercise per week. You're basically just getting the same adaptations, and they're only training 3 times per week for a couple minutes, while the other people have to train a lot more to get the adaptation. So it's all about that mindset of adaptation, and that is what we're doing in the gym. We are putting the stimulus on the body, and that, most people know that you break down muscle tissue and you end up with muscle soreness, and what happens is your body goes in and repairs and does the adaptation so that in the future you get fitter and stronger, but also you are less likely to break down under the same stimulus. So, if you go in and you do 3 sets of 10 bicep curls for the first time ever, you'll probably be sore. The next time you are less sore. The next time even less sore. And the next time after that, you're probably not going to be sore at all, because your body is adapting to that. Now, if you go in and you do another workout too soon, you don't give your body enough time to adapt, and so you don't get as strong or as fit. And worse, because you're training in damaged state, you might have a greater increase in overuse injury over time. So that's why, on my Facebook page today, we had a lot of conversation about how often should I be training. Most people think, because they're doing total body, they're not getting as wicked sore as they used to from, 6 different chest exercises. Therefore, they can go and train more often, or they can do interval training 5 or 6 days per week. But if you do that, you are going to end up with an overuse injury. So a lot of people think they hear the term overtraining, and people get so obsessed with overtraining. Am I overtraining? That's not the main concern. Overuse injury is a much bigger concern than overtraining is for most people. Because overuse injury, I like to think of it this way. It's like if you have the slightest thing wrong in your biomechanics, or you have a slight injury, and then you go and do 3,600 repetitions, which is what you would do if you were going and running for a long time. 3,600 repetitions of the same movement, and it's just like putting a magnifying glass under the sun and fly like a little toy soldier. You just intensify the stress, and you get that overuse injury. It just gets worse and worse and worse. That's why so many runners end up in the physiotherapy office, because they're doing the same thing over and over and over and over and over again, and they end up hurt. And so when you do less with interval training, you get less overuse, and when you train properly with the right amount of breaks, you get the recovery that you need. So it's really an art and science. Like you do a lot of great programming, and you know exactly with experience that you've come to figure exactly how often someone should be training. And if you go and do more training, there's just a diminishing return. Like if you go and do 5 sets of bicep curls, is that going to be 20% better than 4 sets of bicep curls? Of course not. If you do 1 set, 1 really great set, it's probably going to be 75% of the results if you did 3 sets. So when people are stressed for time, they know that they can still get an adaptation by doing 1 quality set. That 1 quality set is probably the most important thing, and then everything else on top of that is additive, but not, exponential additive or anything like that. And to the point, it just becomes, not helpful at all. I mean, if you did 12 sets of bicep curls, it would probably be worse than if you did 4 sets, because you just have so much muscle damage, and you wouldn't. Now you'd have an injury, and you wouldn't have damage to recover, the right amount of damage from. You wouldn't have a stimulus. You'd have an injury to recover from. So it's all this really great mystical balance of training intensity, frequency, and volume.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So, Craig, you mentioned a lot about movement there and variation in movement. And as you know, I'm a huge fan of including the nervous system in adaptation and focusing on movement progressions as well. And you also mentioned starting people out with the basic movement patterns. So what are those basic movement patterns in your eyes?
Well, for someone who's really, 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 really basic, like I'm thinking back to the days when I had a 300-pound lawyer, and, his basic movement patterns, because he was overweight and unfit and hadn't, done exercise in a long time, his basic movement patterns were such as, ab stability, like planks, and, learning how to contract his glute muscles by doing hip extensions. So, going all the way back to that, and then doing wall slides and getting, shoulder mobility. So that's like the lowest of the low. I mean, don't want to say it like that, but I mean, that's the absolute beginner. Then we try and get them into a squatting motion. I have a big 5. What I like to do circuits of big 5, which is a squatting motion, and then a push, a pull, single leg exercise, and a total body ab exercise. Those aren't necessarily the movement patterns. Those are the exercise sequences that I use to cover most of the important movement patterns. A great source for movement patterns is New Rules of Lifting, Volume 2, because he's changed, Alan Cosgrove wrote this book, and he's changed it from the New Rules, the original, which included a lot of twisting, which he's taken out, and based on some of Dr. Stuart McGill's research on avoiding twisting type movements. So really it's, being able to lunge properly, being able to do push-ups properly with your scapula in the right position, being able to do rowing type exercises properly, and pull down or pull up type exercises properly with proper shoulder mobility and movement, and then being able to stabilize your torso and move your upper back, but not necessarily move your lower back in a lot of exercises like a chop or something like that. So those are the movement patterns we're looking to get, but most importantly, to be able to see people controlling their bodies and really being able to hold the proper positions.
Absolutely. Those are great. Let's take it on the flip side. Let's say you're training an athlete now, and you're somebody you really want to get extremely fit, or somebody who just wants to get in fantastic physical shape. What progressions do you push them towards then?
Honestly, I'm just going to get them strong, and then, for like a speed and power athlete, just get them strong with the basics, and then whoever helps them get, their speed or their sports training does their sports training. because I'm not a big, I can really make a guy fast and